This week's edition of NJBIA's Minding Your Business is brought to you in part by AT&T, helping family, friends, and neighbors connect in meaningful ways every day. From the first phone call 140 years ago to mobile video streaming today, AT&T innovates to improve lives. New Jersey's community colleges, aligning education to build an innovative workforce. Find out how your business can join and benefit at njpathways.org. And by New Jersey Business Magazine, providing the critical information needs for New Jersey's business community for more than 65 years.
Welcome to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm your host, Bob Considine. Well, state and local governments in New Jersey are in great need of technology changes amid these changing times. Fortunately for them, CGI, one of the largest IT and business consulting services firms on the planet, has a strong presence right here in the Garden State. Here to discuss the latest industry situations and solutions is CGI Consulting Services Director, Emanuel. Steve, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
All right, so when we talk CGI, huge global presence, also a presence here in New Jersey. What services does it provide?
CGI provides end-to-end consulting services, basically to support strategic IT and enterprise business consulting. It provides systems integration as well as managed IT and business services offerings.
Okay, and what do you do this for government and business?
Absolutely, we do it for both. We do it for government, business. We have a long list of industries that we support, including banking, health and life sciences, insurance, manufacturing, oil and gas, utilities, retail, and of course, government.
It sounds like it covers a lot of ground. Where are your New Jersey locations?
Our newest office location is in New Brunswick, New Jersey, on Albany Street. It's a brand new location. We just opened it in January, and we're actually going to have our formal ribbon cutting in April.
Oh, good. We'll be there. What about how long has CGI been around?
CGI's been here since 1976, so we've had 45 years of excellent service. Okay. We have 78,000 employees.
Wow.
Across 400 locations in 40 countries.
All right. So let's get into it a little bit. When we talk about some of these services, let's focus on local governments.
Sure.
What kind of services do these folks need? Is it a matter of just modernizing?
It's a little bit of everything. Business process and modernization pretty much go hand in hand. Okay. Modernization is something key that governments have to deal with. Many of them have many legacy systems that have been in place for 30 plus years. Right. They're older systems. They're on older platforms, mainframe platforms using old code, COBOL, right. Fortran.
I remember Fortran.
They've been challenged to keep up with the commercial environment, and that's one of the reasons why I'm really enjoying being here at CGI, because it gives me an opportunity to do some of the things we know my peers really need, my former colleagues. Right. They're very interested in getting this. And looking at CGI, I'm looking at strategies that the commercial environments have actually provided and utilizing those methodologies to replicate for government so we can make it more efficient. Government does not have the resources the private sector has, so they have to do it one time with as least amount of risk as possible.
Okay, so we should mention to the folks, you were the Chief Information Officer under Governor Christie.
That's correct.
And I believe at the time you said there were only 9 in the country, and now there's something like 28 or 30.
Chief Data Officers.
Chief Data Officer.
We actually created the 9th Chief Data Officer position for the state of New Jersey.
So this is obviously something that's happened nationally as well. Why? What is the need among state governments to actually have this?
No different than anywhere. It's all about the data. So utilizing the data, creating efficiencies with data, not creating duplications of data, having somebody to focus on data, just like we did 25 years ago on networks, having that person focusing on that and being the strength of the organization to help guide us on what data we should use, how we should manage the data, and how we should control that data. And now with security, security is just as important. The Chief Data Officer and the Chief Information Security Officer really have to align to each other to help that.
Yeah, I wanted to get into security in a bit, but how about, let's go back to local and county governments. You know, when I think of some of these governments, there's not a lot of intelligence infrastructure there, if I'm using the right term. it seems a lot of people need upgrades. A lot of municipalities need upgrades. What is the benefit to them if they go down this road where they improve how they provide their data and have their data?
Well, again, there's so many different things that have happened over the many decades. One of the biggest things is everybody's utilizing their mobile phones in order to get data. And many organizations had systems that would not support mobility. So that's one of the areas where there's an automatic value.
Right. Broadband infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Tell us about more about broadband
infrastructure. Broadband, having the ability and having access to the internet is something that's critical. 20 years ago, we were just starting to get it with cellular phones, and we were starting to get smarter phones. But today, pretty much everything's available on the internet. If you don't have access to the internet, if you don't have the high speed access, you can't provide video conferencing, and we depend on video conferencing. The pandemic has really shown us significantly how important it is to have the bandwidth accessible to you.
Right, that's very interesting. When we mentioned you were the state CIO, you were also at Newark as their chief information officer. When we talk about municipalities, is there just a wide range of needs? Are some of them really high tech and some of them still have paper in cabinets?
Well, every organization, especially in government, is in a different place in the journey. Okay. Some of them are ahead, some of them are really lagging far behind. So it varies. So, we do know paper is an enemy. It's very, very tough to store. It's very expensive to store it elsewhere with public records and having to keep those records on a long-term basis. Having paper records is a challenge. So digitalization is something that we really focus on, and that's the journey we're trying. That's what we call the digital transformation, and that's what CGI's strength really lies in.
Yeah, I can imagine some of these folks, they haven't done anything with decades of data, and it must be kind of a leap of faith to actually engage with you to actually start the process.
It is, and the biggest challenge is really the culture change. I have that piece of paper. Do I really want to put that piece of paper in the garbage and hopefully expect? I mean, some of us, we still fly and we still use paper tickets, even though we've got the digital ticket on our phone, because that trust factor is going. What happens if my battery dies? But the bottom line is most people are accepting that they'll have access to digital capabilities from so many different vectors, either their cell phone, their tablet, their home computer. Even street signs now are giving people information that they couldn't just look on their phone today.
Right, and they're not even looking at the road anymore.
Well, we're talking about these people that are walking through the city.
I understand. Obviously infrastructure funding is a big deal, both from federal and state level. Where do you see technology benefiting from that going forward?
I tell my colleagues and friends, I think this is going to be probably the best opportunity over the next decade for governments to really take some of this funding and actually apply it to that infrastructure, the old systems, the old services and applications that really do need to be modernized. It is critical for some of these systems because part of the problem is we're losing a lot of the people that can actually help manage those systems. Some of these systems are becoming obsolete. The software on them is becoming obsolete. And what you don't want to do is have this be a reactive update to systems and services, because that becomes more significant and more costly.
Right. So when we talk about, we just came out of the pandemic, and there obviously were state agencies, local agencies that struggled. They had data gaps or data issues, performance issues. Where do you think this is going with this infrastructure money? Could that help?
Absolutely. I definitely believe the investment in some of the newer technologies will significantly help. It will help with remote capabilities. It will help with modernized processes. It will help with automations that can be done. A lot of things, for the most part, were not designed in a remote fashion. So those are the kind of things that this technology will improve. And business process review and business process re-engineering will be a big part of that.
Yeah, it's big education.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and speaking of education, I know you wanted to discuss what's called retiring resources. What is the issue here with retiring resources?
You mean the silver tsunami?
Yeah. By the way, as I go grayer, that's what they're calling me, the silver tsunami.
Yeah, well, again, it's the understanding that there are so many state and local government employees that have really been the base for government and IT technology. And we know they're retiring. They're retiring significantly. So we needed to replace that knowledge base. And so CGI's got a really great program in order to do that. And we begin at every level. So we start with our P-Tech group. These are our high school and college folks that are coming in. They're still in school, but they're getting an education about how to deliver technology and services to companies and organizations. And as they do that, they understand that this is their career path. Then we follow that with hiring new college graduates. We've got a great program. We're hiring a lot of college graduates, master's and bachelor's graduates, and we're bringing them in with the latest skills and capabilities, but we're also beginning to teach them how to deliver those skills to our clients and our customers. And then you add to that going to the mid-tier. So these are managers that have been in the organization, in another organization, and we know that they've got basic knowledge that we can bring in, and we start utilizing their knowledge trend for that as well. And then you've got the experienced workers as well. So folks like me that have come in, with 25 to 30 plus years, we can share all of our experience, all of our knowledge, and begin to spread that knowledge across all the different groups. And that's what's going to build an organization of delivering excellence and service excellence and building additional centers of excellence, as CGI likes to do.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think of how many people have come from so many different backgrounds with different experience. You all come to CGI, and it's great. I wanted to hit on one thing with the P-Tech, because now we're talking about younger kids.
Sure.
Do you think there needs to be more of an effort, even from guidance counselors, to let younger kids know that this is a career path? Or is it, it might not be this sexy thing like football or baseball, but this is a great career.
It really is. And they're doing the great education process. Everybody's talking about STEM.
Yeah.
So P-Tech is leveraging the STEM methodology of science, technology, engineering, and math, and really letting folks know that this is a true and a viable career path. And it covers all the gamut. Young girls, young guys are really finding the value here. And organizations like CGI, when we're actually embracing this and putting labs in our new, one of our facilities is actually a STEM lab within our new facility.
Wow.
Just to show the value of this business to education transition. It's not that hard, and it's very supportive, it's encouraged, and we see that these folks are going to be coming back.
Great. One last question, Steve, before we let you go. Cybersecurity, huge issue for government and business. How can CGI help with this?
Absolutely. And again, with the infrastructure funding coming in, we know that cybersecurity is one of the most important aspects about protecting our data, protecting our information. In today's environment and with what's going on in the world today, we know that cyber has to have an investment. So CGI is there to guide you on where the deficiencies may be. We do assessments. We can help you identify other strategic plans where others have been successful in implementing cybersecurity policies, procedures, and solutions. And we're here to do that. And we'll take that across the globe from our commercial marketplace as well as our public sector marketplace. Where they've done it well, we'll help them get there.
Do you think folks know that this is a big deal, and the issue, if they don't have their cybersecurity in place, it's huge if they don't get that corrected, right?
That's correct. And as many of us in the IT field have said, it's not if, but when and how bad.
Right.
So if you're not prepared, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
And yes, there are many areas, many organizations that have not been impacted yet, and as a result, they're just not as prepared as they should be. Those that have had an incident and share that information wake a lot of people up. And one of the first things is talking to the day-to-day people, the people with fingers on the keyboard. They're the weakest link. So starting with cyber assessments and cyber training and cyber awareness is a huge step forward. And then the prevention elements from policies, procedure, and investment come into play.
So we recommend any government, any business, go to cgi.com. They can learn all about this.
Absolutely.
Steve and Emanuel, Director of Consulting Services at CGI, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much again for having me.
All right, and we'll be back right after these words.
Okay, at AT&T, everyone gets our best deals on all smartphones.
Let me break it down. You got your new customers.
They get our best deals.
You got your existing customers.
They also get our best deals.
Everyone gets the deals. Questions?
Got it. But why did you use a permanent marker?
Because I want to make sure you remember. I'm going to get a new whiteboard.
It's not complicated. Only AT&T gives everyone our best deals on every smartphone, like the Samsung Galaxy S21 5G for free.
Welcome back to NJBIA's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, Governor Murphy has released his proposed record-setting $48.9 billion budget for fiscal year 23, which is 41% higher than when he first took office in early 2018. Here to discuss what it could mean for New Jersey's businesses and the economy is NJBIA Vice President of Government Affairs, Christopher Emigholz. Chris, thanks for being back on the show.
Oh, thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
All right, so Chris, you're always a positive person. So let's start off with the positives about this budget.
I try, Bob, and there are many. First up, from the business community, every year we often worry about state budget because that's often when taxes get proposed. And we see for the second year in a row, Governor Murphy has proposed a budget with no proposed new direct taxes on the business community, on anybody.
Right.
We see this is following up his campaign pledge to not have any taxes a second term. Hopefully that's something that we can get behind and see continue for the next couple of years. But that is a good sign because his first three budgets included massive tax increases, and we don't see that now for the second year in a row.
Right.
We also see something on the fiscal responsibility side, actually quite a few things. Number one, the governor for the second year in a row again is fully funding our pension system, 100%. We haven't done that before last year. We haven't done that for decades.
Yeah, 1996.
1996. Yeah. And now we're seeing 2 years in a row. It's $6.8 billion. It's taking up quite a bit of the state budget. But it's the responsible thing to do because governors from both parties have been struggling with how you make your pension payment, how you ramp up your pension payment for years. And it's eaten up a lot of the new growth in the budget. And now you're getting to that point where you're slowly plateauing and it's not going to eat as much of the new growth, the organic inflation growth that you see in the budget.
Right.
We also see some investments, again, on that fiscal responsibility side. We have a larger surplus than we used to have. The governor put some of the surplus that was coming in also in the rainy day or surplus revenue fund, which is a good thing for emergencies. We had to tap into that when COVID happened. Yes,
it was depleted.
It was depleted to make sure the first COVID budget, the governor did not have to make some of the more, I guess, onerous cuts that would have hurt people around the state that rely upon government in that first COVID budget. And now you've seen revenues be pretty strong since that first budget. So we were able to make a few payments. So it got depleted. Right. And now it's up to, we're putting $2 billion in to get to about $4.2 billion there. Hopefully that sits there for a very, very long time and we don't have that rainy day and need it. Yeah. But if we have revenues that come in under projections by a certain threshold, according to the law, then that's when you can trigger that use of that $4.2 billion. Right. So again, a responsible thing to do to put money to the side. We also see the governor in the current budget, because revenues are coming in so strong, putting another over $1 billion into the debt defeasance and prevention fund. We saw this in last year's budget as a good thing that BIA was happy to support. Yeah. And again, we're either retiring or defeasing debt to make it more affordable. We're also looking at how you do capital projects so we can avoid future debt by things that might have had to go to the voters, might have had required bonding, and now they won't.
Okay. So I mentioned on the outset, $48.9 billion. That's a 5.4% increase from last year's budget, and $14.2 billion more than when the governor took office in 2018. I feel like we have this conversation every year, but is it sustainable, this level of spending or appropriations?
I don't think there's any easier answer for that. I would say yes and no. It's sustainable because one of the things that we're also seeing is that revenues are growing. And now, the thing that troubles me most about the sustainability question is that right now, we are spending the proposed budget, spending $1.7 billion more than are coming in revenues. We're able to get away with that. New Jersey has a requirement, constitutional requirement, to have a balanced budget. Right. But we are balancing the budget because the resources being used in this budget, because of prior year surplus, because of a bunch of accounting gimmicks, mechanics of the budget, that we're able to balance it. But it's not sustainable because when you're spending $1.7 billion more than you're bringing in, that's something you can't. You're going to run out of your surplus. You're going to run out of the extra money that you have sitting to the side.
And this is what you've called the structural imbalance.
Yes,
okay.
Structural imbalance. Now, the positive thing on the structural imbalance is we were very concerned that it was over $4 billion last year. We see that $4 billion is now 1.7, but also we're talking about the structural imbalance. It also gets to something we've talked about is the revenue underestimating, underreporting of the governor. And last year was $4 billion, but we thought revenues were actually much higher than the governor was projecting. Revenues have come in really, really strong this year. So actually, from the FY22 proposed budget to the signed budget was in that $4 billion range. Then the FY22 revised budget, which the governor announced last week of, hey, mid-year, what do we think is going to happen in FY22? The structural imbalance went away. Okay. Because revenues were so strong. And now we're saying, okay, it went away, and now we're saying, okay, we're bringing it back up to 1.7. Is that 1.7 because we're underreporting revenues? Is that 1.7 because we're spending too much? Is that 1.7 phasing out from 4 to 1.7 to maybe we get to where we no longer have the structural imbalance, which we have to eventually.
Right.
We don't know that yet.
Let's talk about, I mentioned $48.9 billion. What's in it for small business?
One of our disappointments, Bob, is that despite some of the fiscally responsible things in the budget, when you're spending almost $50 billion, we see not a lot of acknowledgement of the business affordability issues. We've been hearing a lot about affordability in recent months from both parties and both houses, from the governor and his budget speech. And that's a good thing. Our state has an affordability problem. It's something that BIA and the business community has talked about for many years. And the legislature is starting to push some legislation on that, whether it's tax relief or other economic development tools. But the governor's budget on the business side, whether it's the small business that wants to open in New Jersey, whether it's the major corporate business that wants to relocate or expand to New Jersey, or if they're already in New Jersey, but hey, I'm going to grow in New Jersey, or I'm going to grow in Pennsylvania, New York, Delaware, we're not seeing enough to say, you know what, we want to make New Jersey more affordable for that big business, that small business. We want to make it more affordable for the employees of those businesses that are coming to New Jersey, want to relocate to New Jersey, because they see our property taxes, they see the home prices, they see how expensive insurance is, and there's a sticker shock. And business is hard in New Jersey, and I don't think we see enough in this budget to make it more affordable.
You said sticker shock, reminded me of MSRP, which is also the acronym for the Main Street Recovery Program. Right? Yes. So what was that? It's 50 billion or 50 million?
One of the things the governor did that is some direct relief for businesses is there's this Main Street Recovery Program. It was part of the Economic Recovery Act that BIA was happy to support, which was the massive tax incentive program that the state had, but it had a small element for small business support. Main Street's a good program. Main Street's something that BIA was happy to see in this program because historically the tax incentives have been used by larger corporations. And again, those small businesses, which are, I think the governor highlighted this, they're often one of the growers in the state. So when jobs are created, it's usually on that small to mid to large growth, those steps. That's important. We need to support that. Main Street can help with that, but I would argue it's not enough. And I would also argue that we're not doing anything to address the root cause of our affordability issues by kind of putting money here and there. It's going to help some people, but not everybody can get that. But if you actually lower property taxes, if you lower the corporate taxes, if you lower income taxes, that's something that every single person that pays those taxes will benefit from.
Right. And, on the properties tax theme, the governor did announce the Anchor Property Tax Relief Program, which is going to bring relief for both residents and renters, I believe, correct? And that's to the tune of about $900 million. But that didn't include businesses, correct?
No, it did not. You were right, Bob. So for a while we've had the homestead credit, homestead rebate. The homestead program, we got down to where we're spending about $350 million for it. The governor is basically wiping out the homestead program. We're just changing its name to Anchor. And he's dramatically increasing the income eligibility for that so that it's going to hit much more middle income, upper middle income folks in New Jersey that are struggling with their property taxes. Because property taxes, whether it's $12,000, $15,000 a year, that hurts everybody. It's not just a middle income, lower middle income affordability issue. But again, property taxes, it's about half of, the biggest tax that businesses pay is property taxes. They pay about half the property taxes in the state. We know we have the highest property tax burden in the nation, and yet there's nothing. The Anchor program and Homestead also specifically excludes help for businesses, and we think that's something that this is the big new shiny toy in the budget, and yet it's specifically excluding business, and so that's a struggle for us when property taxes are a major issue.
Yeah, and it doesn't speak to reform for property taxes.
No, there's very little in this budget about reforms, and I guess reforms get trickier to push when you have this cash-rich environment that we're in, and there's money to go around, and you don't need to find the savings to be able to do the new things you want to do. We could do the new things without actually making any hard choices. Reform is hard. Usually when you do reforms, there's going to be a constituency that doesn't like it. But that doesn't mean there's still less necessary. It's just kind of pushing, kicking the can down the road.
All right. I want to bring up a couple of bills which will probably be part of the budget discussion going forward over the next few weeks and months. One of them is Bill S-330, which would provide property tax relief for residents and businesses by increasing the amount of funding distributed to municipalities from the Energy Tax Fund. Chris, I believe this bill has been around since you roamed the halls at Half Hollow High in Long Island. What are the chances of this? Where's it going?
Well, the good thing is it's passed the Senate, and the Senate, on a bipartisan basis, seems to be behind the bill. The Assembly and the governor, we don't know exactly where they are, but we do hope to make this part of the budget process. Because the interesting thing with this bill is right now, for a very long time, the state has been raiding the energy tax receipts that are supposed to go to municipalities and using it to help balance the budget. Right. And this bill says state's going to stop doing that, and we're going to go back to the levels before we started raiding it, which costs about $330 million. Right. That is roughly 1% of our property tax levy in the state. Right. And the great thing about this bill is, and it's not saying it's for business or for residents, what it says is that you have to use that $330 million across the whole state to reduce the levy. Yep. So if you're paying upwards of $30 billion a year in property taxes, and then you say $330 million of that has to come off the amount that you're levying, then you're going to see direct relief. That the towns get this money from the state and they have to use it to reduce taxes. And once you're reducing taxes, the bill you get from your township and your borough, wherever that is in the state, will be less by the amount that that town now has in energy tax receipts. So it's a bipartisan bill, been around for a long time, but we think adding this property tax levy component to it actually reduces property taxes, which is something we don't see that often. When's the last time we've seen something pass the legislature, get signed by the governor, that you could say this will cut property taxes in the state by 1%? That's a good thing. And it's a good thing for businesses. It's a good thing for families around the state. It's a good thing for affordability in the state, which is something that will help the economy. Okay.
And I do want to hit on this one before we wrap up. This is Bill S733, which would save employers more than $300 million in unemployment insurance tax increases, without using federal relief funds, at least for that portion of it. This is a big deal, this bill, because obviously we mentioned there's no new taxes, but really there are new taxes in the form of unemployment insurance tax increases for 3 years. So where do you see this bill going?
So we again hope that S733 and Sullivan Greenwald, the majority leader, A2152, I believe, we hope those are part of the budget discussion as well. And not because they require budget general fund appropriations, but we want to see as part of this budget a plan for our federal rescue funds. And we have billions of dollars that have not been utilized. And we understand being thoughtful and deliberate with how you do that, but I want to see a plan to how do we maximize this opportunity that we have of billions of dollars that can be used for things to make New Jersey a better place to live, a better place to do business. And I think one of those things is putting money into the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. So this bill would require, it does 3 things. Number one, as you said, right now we're supposed to have a UI payroll tax increase every year for the current year and then the 2 years after. So 3 years in a row, be about $1 billion in payroll tax increases. This bill would say the 3rd year of that, which happens to be the most onerous, a $300+ million tax increase.
I think it's 336.
Yeah, 336. Yeah. That would be wiped away, and we would stay at the level that we're supposed to get to this coming year. We're still seeing tax increases go up for 2 years, because we understand when you have something as difficult to deal with for everyone as the pandemic and as the record high unemployment that we saw, maybe you need to have everybody kind of pay and replenish this fund. Yeah. But then the second part of this bill is we have a federal loan. The feds had to bail us out to make sure that we can everybody was getting the UI benefits they were entitled to. We're one of the 10 states in the nation left that still has a federal loan.
It's only 10 states.
Only 10 states. Wow. And if this loan is not paid off soon, the federal unemployment tax is going to go up as well. So you could see the state unemployment go up, federal unemployment go up. And also, we're paying interest on this. Why are we paying interest for something that we have billions
all this money?
For? Yeah. No, it's akin to putting money under your mattress when you have giant credit card bills at the same time. So we'd like to see that addressed in this budget and have a plan for the federal money and put some of that towards unemployment. The other thing it does is the transparency of the unemployment fund. These taxes go up and down. The legislature doesn't vote on them. The governor doesn't sign the bill. So having some awareness where Department of Labor is telling the legislature and governor, hey, this tax is about to go up, the tax is about to go down, you should know about a $100 million, $1 billion tax increase.
Yeah,
and so
they should know more than anybody, because if they're thinking about putting more taxes somewhere down the line somewhere else, they should probably know about this one.
Exactly.
All right, Chris Emigholz, thank you so much for being here. Great stuff, great information. We'll talk to you as the months go on.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, and thank you for joining us on NJBIA's Minding Your Business. We'll see you next time.